We are starting 2023 with some great cruise adventures on the horizon, but we thought we'd recap the last of 2022 when, unfortunately, due to COVID, we had to cancel our celebrity cruise this past fall. So instead, we ended up doing a road trip through Eastern Canada where we stopped at lots of cruise ports despite not being on the cruise. So after preparing the car and hitting the road, we first headed to Quebec City. Here's a little bit of our cruise spotting adventure in Eastern Canada. Now be sure to keep watching because by the time this video ends, we will be on a ship and we'll be letting you know what our next cruise is. Okay, we just checked into Hotel Arcadia. We're in Quebec City. They don't have any parking, so we have to go find the city parking lot, and then it's a 5-minute walk back to the hotel. It looks very tiny. Haven't seen the room yet, so let's go check it out. Hotel Arcadia had its entrance right on the side of the street. Our room was on the first floor. It had all of the essentials, a nice king-size bed, and small TV, small desk, coffee maker, small refrigerator, and a little desk area. Now in this room, it was interesting where the sink was set up. It was just inside the entrance, but not in the bathroom. The bed was comfortable, and the windows were large with some nice wooden shutters, which gave that extra bit of privacy, seeing as we were on the first floor, right at ground level. There was a small TV in the room, along with a Keurig coffee maker, an ice bucket on a small desk. And although we were on the first floor, there was a pretty nice view of some of the historic buildings along this street. The bathroom had all of the essentials, including a very nice shower with some extra nozzles. It had a bit of open storage, and there was a hair dryer there as well. The shower included some conditioner, shampoo, and some shower gel.
Once we had settled in, it was time to head out and enjoy the evening. It wasn't long before it was time for some food and drink.
Continued along our way on this beautiful fall evening, and then came across one of the largest Christmas shops we've ever seen, so of course we had to check it out.
There's so much stuff.
It turned out to be a lively and colorful evening with lots of public events going on. Continuing along our way, we came across the beautiful Chateau Frontenac, lit up here for the local Pride Festival. Well, we just finished up our first evening here in Quebec City. Lots to see, lots to do, but we got a good head start. More to come tomorrow. The next morning, we headed out toward the Quebec City cruise port in anticipation of spotting our first cruise ship during this part of the trip.
And there she was, the Celebrity Summit.
It is a lovely historic port, but do note, if you're going to and from the port on foot, you will encounter some hills. There were plenty of venues within walking distance of the ship. We were there quite early in the morning, so not much was open yet. The greater port area is still within a walking distance of the ship. There's lots of restaurants and shops to check out. The area has a great European vibe, and if you want to avoid those hilly roads to get to the downtown area, do check out the funicular. For a few dollars, it will get you up near the Chateau Frontenac, and you can explore further from there. We are off to St. John, New Brunswick today. We got about a 7 or 8 hour road trip ahead of us. But yeah, we got to see the Celebrity Summit while we were here. So we'll see what's in port in St. John. Okay, we've made it to St. John and we are going to bed. See you tomorrow. Up and about early here in St. John. Lots of construction, and what ship did we see but the Carnival Legend? Just steps off the cruise ship and you'll find yourself in the St. John waterfront container village. Here you'll find food trucks, little shops, and tour operators. Here's a quick little walkthrough just so you can see what to expect. And now we're going to head to Reversing Falls. Apparently there's about a 2.5 kilometer walkway that'll get us right to it, so off we go. So it's actually 3.4 kilometers from the cruise port to Reversing Falls. Leaving the cruise port, you'll follow all of the red sidewalks and pathways, and that's how you know you're on the right path to Reversing Falls. During the summer into early fall, you'll come across the Sculpture Village, where you'll find sculptors from around the world working on their pieces of art. It's very interesting. If you're there on a day that they're working, it's free admission, but there's an option to leave a donation. Along the walk, you'll find all kinds of neat little places to stop and check out. We just want to mention quickly that at the Container Village, we picked up some coffees from Epoch Chemistry for our walk to Reversing Falls, and they're delicious. So if you're at the Container Village on your cruise stop in St. John, check them out. Excellent. Along most of the walk, there were some great views of the cruise port, so you can get a view of your ship and these very interesting art installations.
We made it to Reversing Falls.
And it was a bit of a hike, but not too bad. The last kilometer or so, just FYI, it is uphill, so if you're gonna have an issue with that, be aware, but no, it's a nice walk. Yeah, we haven't seen anything reversing yet, but we did see a little seal.
We did. He disappeared.
I don't know where he went. We're not sure, but perhaps we were not there at the correct time, but we did not find what we thought would be the Reversing Falls, although there was some interesting things to see. We will mention briefly that, especially if you have mobility issues, the approach up to the top of Reversing Falls could really use some work. Just be careful of your step. The main waterfront area, no problem. Along the waterfront, there's some great views, some places to eat, and some shopping if you wish. We are here at, is it Grennan's?
Grennan's Seafood and Oyster Bar.
Yes, right here on the St. John waterfront. The food here was delicious. We returned to the cruise port, then it was back on the road, this time on our way to Halifax, Nova Scotia. All right, we've arrived in Halifax after a quick drive from St. John. We're gonna head out here for something to eat, and then we're probably gonna relax for the evening and then have a full day tomorrow. See you then. Room 420 at the Residence Inn by Marriott, downtown Halifax. Little kitchenette, fridge, stove, microwave, and dishwasher. Another little chest of drawers here, the TV. Again, living room, desk, kitchenette, and bathroom. Once we had a little rest, it was time to go find a bite to eat. There's plenty of options around this area in downtown Halifax. We went for Mexican this night. And just like that, it's the next morning. We are heading off on the Halifax waterfront to see what cruise ships might be in this day. It's nice and early, so here's a little bit of our stroll along the Halifax waterfront. Being so early, nothing was really open, but we knew that would change before long. Got our first glimpse of some cruise ships in port, but first we managed to get some views of this beautiful yacht coming into the dock.
Good morning.
Good morning from the Halifax waterfront, that is. We are in Halifax, Nova Scotia, where our East Coast cruise ship spotting continues. And actually there are 3 ships at the port of Halifax today. We have the Holland America Zandam, the Royal Caribbean's Adventure of the Seas, and arriving shortly is the Carnival Legend, which we just saw yesterday in St. John. So we're going to just wander over that way and see what we can take in. There's a new development here on the Halifax waterfront, and apparently it is modeled after a cruise ship. Can you see it? Holland America Line is not a mega ship by any means, holding about 1,400 passengers, but she certainly dwarfs the terminal buildings here in Halifax. Once at the Port of Halifax, there's plenty of shopping options and areas within the port itself to grab yourself some souvenirs, some local memorabilia, and some snacks, of course. If Halifax is on your itinerary and you arrive via your cruise ship, you will want to exit to the right when you leave the terminal. There are plenty of signs pointing you toward the main Halifax waterfront, and that's where you'll find most of the Halifax shops and some great views from the boardwalk. There's plenty of interesting things to see along your walk, and you'll know you're headed in the right direction when you cross under this metal arch. Walking from the terminal to the main areas of the Halifax boardwalk will take anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes. Pretty much all along this route, you can look back and see your cruise ship as you take in the great views, look at some great art installations, and then of course head off to some restaurants and shops along the waterfront. As you continue walking along the waterfront, you'll come across the Big Wave, well known to locals in Halifax, and next to it you'll find the Maritime Museum of the Atlantic for all those looking for a bit of maritime history, including some great Titanic exhibitions. As you continue along your way, you'll find the newest development area on the Halifax waterfront, again offering some spectacular views, some shopping, and of course some additional restaurants. From this end of the waterfront, you can still see your cruise ships off in the distance. This modern area with the great views makes for some great photo opportunities. From the Halifax ferry terminal, you can catch a ferry over to the Dartmouth side of the harbor. From there, you'll get some amazing views of the Halifax skyline. Once you've made your way along the waterfront, you'll eventually get to an area known as the Historic Properties. By the time you get to the opposite end of the waterfront, you'll come across an area known as Purdy's Wharf. Here you'll also find the entrance to Casino Nova Scotia for those that like to test the fates. That will do it for our time in the Port of Halifax. We are now off to Sydney, Cape Breton Island. Here we are crossing the Canso Causeway, which connects mainland Nova Scotia to Cape Breton Island. From here, it'll be about a 2-hour drive into Sydney. And fast forward 2 days, and we are now in Sydney, Nova Scotia, where we have spotted the Norwegian Joy. As you can see here, the Norwegian Joy towers over the Sydney Cruise Terminal. The Norwegian Joy has a capacity of over 3,800 guests and just under 2,000 crew. If we have our timing correct, Ilana from Lifewell Cruise was on this sailing. Be sure to check out her YouTube channel, Lifewell Cruise, for more information about her sailing on Norwegian Joy. Aside from some small shops and a restaurant at the port, there's also tourism information along with bike and scooter rentals. And of course, you can't come to Sydney and not check out the Big Fiddle. It's really a photo op that cruise passengers coming to Sydney should not miss. It was a windy day in Sydney. There was some talk about concerns that the Norwegian Joy may not be able to depart on time. But as you can see, it eventually headed out backwards down the harbor, where it eventually was able to turn around and head out to open water. The following day in Sydney was beautiful, and now we had the Norwegian Pearl at the port. The Norwegian Pearl is a mid-sized cruise ship with Norwegian Cruise Lines, holding about 2,400 passengers plus crew. Here's a few shots of our time checking out the Norwegian Pearl. The next day in Sydney, we caught up again with the Holland America Line Zaandam. We then had the much larger New Statendam, also by Holland America Line. This ship holds about 2,700 passengers plus crew. It was then time for Carnival Cruise Lines, with Carnival Magic in port. This ship holds over 6,000 people at full capacity. Docked at the second berth in Sydney was the P&OArcadia. This is a small to mid-sized ship holding about 3,500 passengers total. With a maximum of 2 ships at the Sydney Cruise Terminal, The shops and area can get quite busy, as you can see. This was our last day in Sydney and turned out to be the last 2 cruise ships we would see during this East Coast tour. But that doesn't mean we didn't end up on a ship. Let's see where we ended up.
Hello.
We have been on the road today, driving from Sydney, Nova Scotia. And now, after doing some cruise ship spotting, we are about to board the MV Confederation. No, not a cruise ship, but it is a ferry taking us from Caribou, Nova Scotia to Wood Island's PEI. So our sailing that was scheduled for earlier today was canceled, apparently due to high winds, but now we're scheduled on this later sailing this afternoon. And as you can probably see through the sunroof, it's still a bit cloudy, a little bit windy, so we're hoping this is a smooth 75-minute crossing, but we'll see how it goes. It's a little rocky here on the ferry, a little windy. How are you feeling?
Nauseous.
Okay, we're just a few minutes away from finishing this ferry ride across the Northumberland Strait. We didn't get too much footage outside because it was rather bumpy, rather windy, and we had to spend, unfortunately, most of our time indoors.
And in the bathroom.
Yes, we all had some time in the bathroom. So anyway, thanks to the Northumberland Strait weather, we made it safe and sound. After a great overnight on PEI, it was back to the mainland via the Confederation Bridge. While traveling back through New Brunswick, we took a little detour to check out the world's largest covered bridge in Heartland, New Brunswick. Here's a little peek. Well, that will do it for this East Coast road trip and cruise spotting adventure. We've seen a total of 10 different cruise ships in 4 Canadian ports. And for those considering an itinerary in Eastern Canada, there's certainly lots to see and do. We are excited to announce that our next cruise leaves in a matter of weeks when we board Royal Caribbean's Anthem of the Seas, leaving out of Bayonne, New Jersey, heading for the Bahamas. Please be sure to like and subscribe so we can bring you along on that adventure in just a few weeks.